do a lot of talking, so don't worry about it. Stephen, are you good for us to begin?
Yeah, as long as the tech person's ready, we're good.
We're going to start it though anyway. So good evening, everyone. I will call the October 14, 2024 meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors to order. I will note that the board did meet in executive session this evening, where we discussed with regards to litigation matters, the following zoning cases: 307 First Avenue, 309 Earls Lane, 103 Tanglewood. We also spoke about the curative amendment case at Ellis and Westchester Pike. Court of Common Pleas found that the zoning is lawful and denied the challenge. And then we also discussed the code enforcement matter, discussion of two code enforcement matters. Thank you for that, Mr. Sikora. I couldn't make out your handwriting on that one. With that being said, Mr. Neese, I'll save you the voice. I'll call the roll if you're fine with that.
That's okay. That's great.
All right, so the chairman is here, Vice Chair Robert Lightcap here, Supervisor Russo,
Here.
Supervisor San Francisco,
Here.
Supervisor Chanlis is attempting to join. I will also note for the record that the township manager is here via Zoom, our township solicitor, Mr. Sikora, is here, and our township engineer, Mr. Johnson. With that being said, we'll now move down to the moment of silence. I ask that we remember and pray for and think of all those individuals who have been affected by Hurricanes Milton and Helene. And we'll stand for the pledge. Okay. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Section 5, agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move.
Second. Motion is made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Robert Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Section 6, public comment for agenda items only. If there's any members of the public who have anything that they wish to say on an agenda item, please go up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Paul Seligson, 4727 Mill Hollow Lane. 14.1 through 14.5 is about tree medians or planting trees in the median. And on behalf of Newtown Square and Bloom, I just want to say how grateful we are that this came up on the agenda. We're very excited, and we really appreciate that you brought this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seligson. Anyone else for public comment? All right, let the record reflect that there is no additional public comment. One thing I will note, and I failed to mention this in the beginning, is that today is obviously Columbus Day. So I want to wish everybody a happy Columbus Day. And I do just want to highlight something. I don't usually speak too favorably of anything that comes out of Washington, D.C., but the president did release a proclamation recognizing Columbus Day. And I just want to highlight just two paragraphs that are in there, because I think it's extremely important. So the president said, today we celebrate the proud heritage of Italian Americans, our nation, whose contributions and characters have shaped our country's soul. I believe we are the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. For some Italian American families, the stories they share about their ancestors' lives in this country stretch back generations. They are stories about immigrants who left everything behind to sail across an ocean and chase the American dream for the hope of a brighter future. They are stories about ancestors who helped build this country and found America's middle class, and their traditions and recipes still bring joy to their families today. They are stories of Italian-American artists, laborers, lawmakers, and leaders who never gave up on the idea of America. And for many Italian-Americans, the story of Christopher Columbus's voyage crossing the Atlantic from the Spanish port of Palos de la Frontera on behalf of Queen Isabella I and King Ferdinand II remains a source of pride. But no matter if their families arrived here centuries ago or only recently, Italian-Americans' courage, strength, and character are woven into the rich tapestry of our country. For many Italian-Americans, the lives of their ancestors in this country were not always easy. In addition to the challenges of starting life in a new land, they also faced discrimination. Columbus Day was founded by President Benjamin Harrison in 1892 in response to the horrific xenophobic attack that took the lives of 11 Italian-Americans the year before. In the face of hate, Italian-Americans persisted, advancing our nation and challenging us to live up to our highest values. The proclamation continues, but I just thought that those are some very important and poignant parts as we celebrate Columbus Day and have this meeting here this evening. With that being said, we'll now move down to...
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just would make note, I believe Ms. Chalice is now online. So just add her to your agenda.
Perfect. Supervisor Chandler, you can hear us?
I can, yep. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. So now move down to section 8, resolutions of recognition, 8.1, approving resolution 2024-20, recognizing the Eagle Scout achievement of Doug Agatone. Supervisor Robert Lightcap.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2024-20, recognizing Douglas Agatone on achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America have a proud history of service in the community of Newtown Township dating back over 100 years. And whereas the mission of the Boy Scouts of America is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of God to duty and country, to help other people at all times, to keep physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight, and to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And whereas Newtown Township recognizes and congratulates Doug Agatone, a member of Boy Scout Troop 315, on his achievement of Eagle Scout, the highest honor bestowed by the Boy Scouts of America. And whereas Doug has dedicated countless hours of service to the community with the Boy Scouts through various projects, including, among others, food collections for those in need, improvements to our parks and trails, and care at our historical sites. And whereas Doug earned a total of 51 merit badges, which is 30 more merit badges than the required 21, and identifying his Eagle Scout insignia with 2 silver palms. And whereas Doug is known by his family, teachers, and friends, who include his fellow Scouts, to have taken the principles of the Scout Oath, the Scout Law, and the traits of an Eagle Scout to heart, and exhibits them in how he conducts himself and how he leads others by example. And therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township commends Douglas Agatone and directs a copy of this resolution to be provided to him on the occasion of his Eagle Scout Court of Honor celebrated on search, adopted this 14th day of October 24. And that is my motion.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Robert Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion?
I just want to commend Doug on his Eagle Scout, the fact that he's gotten 30 more merit badges than he needed is pretty impressive. So, and being the mother of 2, a proud mother of 2 Eagle Scouts, I know how hard that is. So and George is part of that troop. So kudos to you and to your Scout leadership. You guys do a great job. Did we vote?
Nope, we're voting right now. So any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Neese.
I would make note that I think we skipped over item 1.7. I mean, 7.1. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. 7.1 minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the September 23rd, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. All right, section 9, presentation, Stoney Knoll presentation, Mr. Gade.
Nice to see you all again. Appreciate the opportunity to come before the board to discuss the Stoney Knoll project. We all know how important stormwater management is, and we want to explain some of the changes that we're proposing for the project. Can I get the exhibit on the? I also have some handouts if you would like to see the handouts. If you can go to page 3, I appreciate that. We're going to start with 3 first. Perfect, right there. Okay, so as part of the approval process, we had to design temporary swales around the site to keep the dirty water in the site and clean water outside the site. And that's kind of represented by the pink line on both the top and the bottom of the subdivision plan. That's the basically temporary swales. And what we found out is that those swales have to kind of stay there for the entire construction of the site, all 17 lots. So, for example, if you were to build on, let's say, lot 3, and you built your house there, you would have a temporary swale in your yard until the rest of the ones build out. So what we wanted to do is, and with that swale in there, the developer would have to come back and then rip it all out and reseed it and everything like that. So I think we were talking to the builder Polix, and what we want to do is we want to move the temporary swale up further so that the people who build their houses, they have more access to their backyard as opposed to having a temporary swale through there for the next maybe 1 year, 2 year, maybe even 3, depending on how long the rest of the development's going to take. Okay, so we have to submit plans to DEP. Anytime there's a change like that, we have to submit plans to DEP. And we're in the process of submitting plans to DEP. In addition, lot number 9, which is the large lot up here, we've already gotten a building permit for that. And we submitted a change to the permit, a minor change, so we can move that swale now. We submitted that permit to DEP. They're reviewing it. Township has a copy of it. So what we would like to do is send another amendment to the DEP permit where we extend the swales down to the blue lines up top. And then those temporary swales stay there to the end of the project. It's not a big deal. It's no impact on any of the stormwater management, small impact on some of the basins. That's what we're proposing to do.
Isn't there more? So,
I'm sorry,
isn't
what?
there more? Is this it?
No, it's just the first part.
That's what I thought,
Right?
yeah.
So this is temporary,
yes,
but
these are all
this
temporary.
first one is temporary.
Yes, it's
Or
temporary.
during construction.
Correct.
Okay.
It'll be removed once DEP deems the site to be stabilized.
Might as well go through the whole presentation and then we'll
Okay,
we'll have
fine.
some questions there.
All right, now the second thing is the increase in house sizes. I think that's what we're here for. So, lot 9, the large one in here, and if you can go to the second, one more, please. Okay. So lot 9 was the first one that came in, and it was a pretty big lot. Now, for stormwater management, we designed for a certain amount of impervious coverage per lot. We have to kind of estimate. We go to the builder and we say what kind of house you're going to put on there. We design the stormwater for a certain amount of square footage. So we designed every lot for 12,300 square feet of impervious coverage. And that all goes into the basins and the inlets and stuff like that. So along comes the first house and they're over on impervious. The new house is 19,335 or a total of 7,000 square foot additional coverage. Now, what we did is we submitted that building permit to the township, proved that there was no impact to the stormwater with the increase. Township gave us the permit and it's under construction right now. Along comes the next lot, which was a lot 11, which is the one down here. And that is also slightly larger. Once again, 12,300 is the target, and they came in at 13,140 square feet, about 840 square feet in addition. So I think that's what we're here kind of to discuss. There was a minor change on each, some of these lots have on-lot beds, some of them had the basins. The ones with the on-lot beds, which was lot 11, we had to make a minor change to it. We basically made it 6 inches deeper. And that accounted for all the 840 square feet of the stormwater management. Very insignificant. And then we started talking, that's when the township started questioning, say, hey, what about this? Are these increases going to continue throughout the subdivision, each house coming in? Discussions with the builder, we don't think there's going to be a lot of overall increase. Yes, lot 9 was an outlier. First of all, it's the biggest lot in the subdivision. So it has more room to expand, but the rest of them are basically all the same size, width, and length. So what we want to do is, we have no doubt that some of the houses may come in over the 12,300. We also believe that some of them probably won't. But in order to resolve the issue now, what we want to do is we want to send, and we'll have to go to DEP for this also, we're going to increase the total square footage per lot 2,000. So we're going to take it from, or 1,900. So we're going to take it from 12,300 to 14,200 total square feet. We will submit a plan with each lot when we submit for the grading permit, and we will show stormwater calculations to prove that there's no impact to the stormwater management. What we are expecting is the houses with the small beds on them, they might get 3 feet wider or 6 inches lower. The additional 2,000 square foot of house is not significant to the overall subdivision. The 3 big stormwater management beds, we do not anticipate having to touch them at all. All we're talking about is just modifying the houses with the on-lot beds to account for the 300. And the other thing I will say is that we're going to design the beds for this additional stormwater, whether or not they come in with increase in impervious or not. Because what that'll do is it'll give the homeowner an opportunity if 2 years from now he says, you know what, I want to put a patio here, or I want to put a shed or something like that. Then he has some additional square footage built into it as well.
So I think my first kind of reaction here or comment is, again, don't have a problem with the overall development. Obviously, I voted for it. I think that you know it's going to be a nice project, but it sounds like there's a lot of plugging and changing and all over the place. So my recommendation would be that you guys submit a formal request for a waiver of land development to the township. Let our engineer get in there and look at everything before you start sending everything up to DEP. I don't want to see a bunch of hodgepodge, changes. I understand that you don't anticipate, you think that this change is going to encompass that. But I think that to ensure that we have our township staff and professionals looking at this, I'd be more comfortable personally having you guys do a formal waiver of land development. I don't think it's necessary for you guys to go through land development review again. Let our engineer get in there and look at some of these changes so that we know from a township perspective that everything you're saying, and I have no reason not to believe you, but that everything you're saying is indeed kosher and correct, and we're fine, and there's no issues. That's my initial position on this.
The one thing I'll say about that is that each house comes in, it's a little bit different. So we're not going to be able to predict what the next house is going to look like. All we're going to say is that we're going to give a buffer of an additional 2,000 square feet to that particular lot.
Now, I understand that.
Okay, and the other thing is I want to point out that with these changes, there is all the lots still comply with zoning, all the lots still comply with land development. There's no change with that whatsoever.
Yep. I just want to make sure that the information that we're being told, again, I have no reason not to believe that, but I need to look at it from the township's perspective. I want to make sure that our guys are looking at this and that there is no need to change anything with regards to the larger retention basins or anything else like that. Like you said at the beginning of this, stormwater obviously is extremely important. It's a big issue in this township. It's our #1 issue, especially with regards to expenditures and the projects that we're doing with it. So I want to make sure, one thing that was great about this project was the way that you guys designed it with regards to the stormwater. I want to make sure that the addition is going to capture everything that you guys are saying it's going to. So that's my thought on this.
I agree, because it was a long process. with this project, and stormwater management was a big factor in this. So, you know, to add, I mean, it's, you know, the increase, and I get it, because this is the largest lot, so they can take advantage of it. But to the chairman's point, I think it's important that we follow the same procedures, just because I know it's out of the box. But we did spend a lot of time on stormwater management discussions, and I would feel more comfortable if our engineer could look at it as well, or Andy or somebody. I would imagine that it would be Eric.
Thank you.
The green lots, I'm sorry, the other one, they were just ones where, there was no impact to the lots based on the temporary swales. In other words, there was no impact whatsoever, and we didn't have to worry about the swales being in the way on the green lots. That's it.
So let me understand this. You're moving the red swale. Where's the red swale going?
Next one. So the pink one is the existing design.
Right.
The blue ones is the one, are the new temporary swells. So it's gonna be, we're gonna move them up on the top a little bit closer to the top, property line, and on the bottom a little bit closer to the property lines down there.
What are you gonna do with a little stockpile of soil?
Oh, I don't think there's gonna be any real stockpile of soil. These are all just no more, the swales are no more than like a foot deep. And,
Well, no, but you're saying you have to move the swales because, for instance, the 4 houses that are on the, I guess, the south side of the road, you're moving the swale, right? You don't know what's being built first,
well, it more.
other than the one house on the end.
It more comes down to, Mr. Russo, the fact that once we build a temporary swale, we can't move it until all the houses are built. So, and you're talking, if there was a stockpile right here,
Yeah.
that's not gonna change. That's all gonna be within the controlled area.
So is the temporary, is the road in and bindered?
I'm sorry, what?
Is the whole road in and bindered?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so then
It is right now.
you're gonna have one swale that's smaller than the, I guess it's very hard to see this. Just says limits disturbance change to me. Are you moving the swale behind those houses closer to the neighbors? And then the same thing, you're moving the other swale closer, Mr. Nolan?
Yes, correct. With no impact to the neighbors. That's the idea. You're capturing any water that runs down to the neighbors and capturing the temporary swale and getting it into the sediment basin.
Good. Because that just raised another question. So with regards to the change on, and we'll just say Plan South for argument's sake, what is that change, Jim, with regards, like, what's the distance that we're changing, that we're putting that closer to those properties that are on
About 50,
Valley?
say about 50, 75 feet coming down this way here.
Got it.
Right, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking.
Yes.
And so for the three green ones where it looks like it's closer to the property line, is that changing? It's kind of hard to see on this plan.
No, there's no change.
There's no change on that one. Okay.
Is that?
Yeah.
That weird shape.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board? I believe you had someone coming up to talk, but is there any other questions from the board? Go ahead, sir. And if you can just state your name and title, sir.
Yes, my name's Wayne Layton. I'm a partner in TDWC, the equitable owner of the land, and a partner in Pollard Homes, the builder of the property.
You said your last name's Layton?
Layton.
How do you spell that, sir?
Leighton.
Thank you.
So if you were to look at those pink, first of all, the pink swells, the size of the pink swells, maybe a foot deep, 3 feet wide. The size of the proposed blue swells, maybe a foot deep, 3 feet wide. The primary reason for relocating the swells is that these swells in their current location, you can see the houses, and in particular down here. These temporary swells that we simply want to replace with the same size swells further back on the lots, these actually interfere with our ability to construct the homes. They are so close, and if anybody wants to move their home back or have patio further back or grade their backyard a little bit, the swells bisect the property and make construction very difficult. Secondarily, Once they're in and we build the house and the patio's right there, there's a swale bisecting the backyard of the people that are living there, that 4 or 5 years from now, we're going to have to go back, remove those, interrupt them living in the home, and push and get rid of them. So it's the primary reason for the requested change is to relocate the swale so that construction can be more efficiently addressed, give the people that are buying the lots, and the people are buying lots here and then constructing later. There are 4 lots owned by who will ultimately be residents of this township right now that are trying to build their homes, that Polig is trying to build it. Those swales prevent them from being able to put their pool in, being able to put their pool house in, being able to put their patio in. We simply want to relocate the swales so that we can build the house, increase the utility of the lot, and not come out back 3 or 4 years later and disrupt them as they're living in the home. That's the primary reason, okay? The secondary reason, as Jim mentioned, is that the impervious coverage of each of these homes could get larger. If I had to, I would give up the impervious coverage increase. But what you will have is if someone goes over a little bit 3 years from now, we're going to have to come back in and go for another full revision to the NPDES permit. So what we're trying to do is anticipate for each of these lots, someone's going to come in, they're going to build a house. They may build a detached garage. They may put a pool in. They may have a bigger patio. They may have a horseshoe drive or a parking port in the front. What we're trying to do is size the beds so that all of that's taken care of. And to the extent that someone simply builds a house today, they want to build a detached garage, the stormwater management is already taken care of. So we're trying to be proactive in understanding that there could be a little bit more impervious coverage here. That's all.
And Mr.
Doesn't
Lane,
affect the permanent beds at all.
and everything you say, up until that last part, because I don't know, have confirmation on that, I agree with, and I think the board has no issue with it. I have no problem, speaking as one, of moving those swales. Everything that you outlined makes complete sense to me from both a practical standpoint and an economic standpoint, and then also just the again, practical standpoint of the residents who are going to be living there, having the house already established, then having to come in 3 years later and rip it all out just to move it again. I have no problem with that. I also have no problem with what it is that you guys are proposing to do. I just want to be very clear on that. All I want, from my perspective, is to ensure that my township staff can look at the information that you guys are talking about and confirm that everything is okay. That's why I'm saying I don't think I don't have any desire to have you guys go through a land development process. If we can, my recommendation would be a waiver of that land development, just so our engineer can give you guys official comments, we can give you official reports, and then we know that what you guys are requesting is going to be fine with regard to stormwater for that development, and then also the way that'll affect the rest of the residents.
Understood. And quite frankly, I don't think it's a land development issue. However, I would be willing to let your township engineer take a look at the DEP permit request before we submit it, to make sure that he understands exactly what we're trying to do out there, that what we're proposing with that slight increase in impervious coverage is not going to in any way harm the adjoining neighbors, necessarily increase the size of the permanent basis. So as an accommodation, I'm more than happy to have your township engineer review it. I don't want to have to go back through some sort of land development process because I don't think it is a land.
We're not, that's why,
issue.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying a waiver of that. I'm making sure that you don't go through that land development process.
Official, you come in and say, look, this is the plan that we've approved, right, that we've gotten approved. We're changing that plan. It's different. It's not what appears on paper anymore. And we're submitting, you don't even have to agree that it is land development. You're requesting without waiver of any other rights. We're requesting a waiver of land development and we want to make all of these changes to the land development plan that's been approved, that these guys have looked, because what's happened is you're coming in with a presentation, right? And that's
Right,
great.
we're trying to make an
Right,
accommodation so everybody understands what we're trying to do.
And the board's saying, okay, well, we understand that, but it's not a formal process. We spent a lot of time, 2 years going over this.
Understood.
Right? And all of a sudden, without any really forewarning, they got something in front of them saying, well, it's different.
Well,
Yeah.
keep in mind,
Yeah.
Rich, that we believe it's only a change to an NPDES permit, but we want to be as accommodating to the township as we possibly can be.
I got you, but you're also saying, hey, we want to change the stormwater management facilities on the
No.
lot, right? I
All
mean,
individual lots, which
I
have to
understand.
come in
and then,
individually.
but there's also landscaping requirements on those lots. There was swales on those lots. I don't know. Is it all going to be in depth? Has that been vetted with? I mean, there's questions that these guys are going to have that if you just have a formal request in, that triggers a formal response by our engineer saying, hey, listen, I'm okay with the swales, right? Like the stormwater management, the size of the house was presented. There was when the board approved this, there was house sizes that were on there. Now it sounds like it's changing. So it's I don't think it's a big request to ask from our engineer. Maybe, and if he thinks that any other professional needs to look at it from a
Who else would need to look at it other than
I don't know.
township engineer?
That's what this is what's going to happen. We
Well, my concern is if I'm asking for a waiver of land development.
Mhm.
There's no guarantee that that waiver is going to be given, and I don't believe it is a land development issue. I'm more than happy to have the township engineer review the plans and make recommendations.
Yeah.
But does it have to be as a waiver of land development?
yeah,
Is there
like I
another
said,
way to do it with
what
a
I'm
request
saying-
for the engineer to review the permit?
What I'm suggesting to you, and we can talk about this offline to flush it out more fully if you'd like, is you don't have to agree that it's land development or a change in land development. You can submit a request for a waiver without prejudice to any other position you have as to whether it's land development. If the board waives it, your concern about admitting that it's land development doesn't matter, right? If the board does not waive land development, you haven't waived your position that it's not land development, and you can have whatever dispute you have with the township, whatever you want. I'm suggesting that the easiest path forward for you is to request a waiver. What it is that you're trying to do, everything in total. If this is it, great. And then say this, we don't want any other waivers or any other differences between what was approved by the board in prior meetings and what's on this. This would trigger one more response by our engineer, a letter. That letter goes to the board and they have time to look at it and review it and perhaps agree with you that, hey, we don't even think this is a land development issue. And so to the extent a waiver is needed, we grant it. And to the extent it's not a waiver, we do grant a waiver. And right now,
Does that mean that we have to go through all of the boards again? Timing is
no,
of an issue here.
this is a waiver. Why
I understand.
we're suggesting
I
that
understand.
you
I understand. what
request a
you're
waiver
suggesting.
of that process. If you say,
Let me, this
Yeah.
is. Pronounce.
Yeah, sure. I'm Matt Kornoski. I'm the attorney for Polig. So
Matt, real quick,
Yeah.
just spell your last name.
KORENOSKI.
Okay, Koren.
OSKI.
Okay. And you're in-house with Polig?
Not in-house. No, I'm at the firm of Unruh Turner out
Okay.
of Westchester.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so just so we understand where we are right now, you guys are saying that you'd like us to submit is it a form that you guys have on?
just a letter explaining what it is you want to do. If this is it, if this is the total change, saying these are the changes, we're requesting we're requesting of that land development be waived or to the extent that this is a modification of the approved land development plan. We're requesting a waiver, any process, formally amend that plan, submit it, email it to the township, our township engineer. That will trigger formal letter from our engineer making comments on what you have proposed, maybe questions that you'll have to answer.
This is your preferred way to trigger a review by your township engineer.
That's right.
What I'm hearing.
That's right. And then
To your question, again, this will not require you to go through any planning board, zoning board, EAC or anything, that's already been established. And the plan itself has already been approved. We just want to make sure that the changes that you're doing, our township engineer and our township staff have a chance to look at it and make sure that everything's okay. It'll be, I don't want to say expedited, but it'll be much quicker than the 2 years we had conversations on this. Again, because like Rich said, the concern that I have, and I think I'm speaking for the rest of the board here, is that what we approved is changed. And we want to make sure that our staff, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Gade and Stantec, but I want to make sure my staff is also reviewing this and looking at this, and everything that they're saying is okay. Everything that you guys are
We
submitting. is
get,
okay.
yeah, when you came in for land development, we got a comment letter from the engineer. And he said, okay, here's the thing. And then you guys responded to those comments, right? That may very well happen here, but then the board has this understanding of that, all the issues that have been. It might be nothing other than what you've discussed here, but in my mind, I know that, the butterfly flaps its wings in China and you have a hurricane in Florida, right? I mean, so are there any other changes that this would impact? Maybe not, maybe so.
I guess the question, sorry, Wayne, but is the timeline we would have, is this something that we could be back on, the agenda for, I mean, is this a formal agenda item, or is this something that the engineer reviews, submits it to the board, and then what do we hear from next? Because we would just like that to be as expedited as quick as possible.
It would be an agenda.
Question, how long you been out there pushing dirt? You've been out there 6 months, 9 months, how long you been out there?
We've been out there 6 months.
Okay, so you're coming with 6 months into a project and telling us everything's gonna hurry. Well, unfortunately, Mr. Nolan came here, made a bunch of representations, and it took us a while to get through his original proposal, which is what you started building on. Now you have your own thing you want to modify it to. I don't know, I do land development over the country. This is a very small ask, in my opinion. And, I understand you guys are in a hurry, but, you just said yourself, it's gonna be 3 or 4 years before some of these houses are even built. So I'm not understanding that, you waited 6 months to come to us. It's 3 or 4 years duration on this project for 17 homes, because I guess they're all high-end custom homes. Okay, so we want our professionals to review it.
And just to be clear, each of these houses are custom homes, so we don't know exactly what we're building until the client and their architect actually design them. So as soon as we found out that there could be a chance that the future homes could be bigger than we had anticipated, that's when we immediately came back. I mean, right now, we don't need to go for the NPDS revision. Minor on lot 11 covers it, or 9, and lot 11 is allowed to go over because there's increases and decreases across the lot. We're simply trying to make you aware as early as we possibly could that these lots could support more building coverage in terms of the houses than we had originally anticipated. So as soon as we got an inkling through these first 2 lots, we'll bring it to you. So please don't think that we tried to hold
Well,
back.
no,
We're trying to get it to you as quickly as
but let's put it this way. Let's be frank. Mr. Nolan had this project sold to you guys. He represented it. He was gonna build it himself. He asked us for all this help. We're gonna have to do this and have to do that. We worked with him. It took a long time because he was very argumentative and he didn't want to, he wanted everything for nothing. And then he sold this to you at some point, probably prior to he got approval. And now you guys are figuring out what you want to do. We're willing to work with you, but like, this is the way land development works. I mean, we're gonna have our professionals review it. You have all these nice drawings here, and this house is much bigger than what was approved. And we're not saying we're not gonna approve it, we just want our professionals to review it.
Yeah, and all we're asking is, and we don't have a problem with that, I think that the ask is a reasonable ask.
Okay.
That you have your professionals review it. All we're asking is, what does that process entail so that we know what we can expect? We have 2 houses, one's in for permanent, one is in foundation. We simply want to realistically keep it going, understanding that you have certain things that you want to achieve. We're simply asking what that process is, that's all.
Well, what I suggested, like, as I said, is send a letter saying that the changes outlined on this are the sole changes that you're seeking, period, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I was gonna say, you said you're working on the NPDS permits. That means your engineers preparing updated plans. So I think we're kind of in line with what we're seeking there.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that all the changes that we're proposing are going to have to go in front of a revised NPDS plan, which we're working on, so. That could be the review that Eric looks at.
I don't think it's different plan. I think it's the same plan.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
the question is, when are you gonna have the plan ready for him to look at?
So this is what I think, because we're talking in a cyclical motion. I think a lot of this honestly can be discussed offline. Is everybody on the board fine with that? That's the plan that we're gonna do? Is there any other questions with regards to that without the nitty-gritty details? I'm gonna recommend that you guys just contact Mr. Sikora and Mr. Johnson, but I think that's the direction that the board wants to move forward with. Again,
Do we come back before the board again, or does Eric just approve it and it's, you do have to come back before the board?
We're gonna if we give you a waiver, you have to come back before the board.
Okay, I'm just asking.
We just want to understand the procedure, so we can authorize.
no, I understand.
Get the comment letter, make sure all the comments are answered, just like it would be in a land development context, right? The board can look at those letters, comments back and forth. Might not be any, it might be comply. It might be, I have no comments, right? Whatever it is. And then the board can, okay, make their decision and you're done. I don't think, it's not a long belabored process. It's a formal process that gives the board some comfort level that, hey, things are changing. We want to make sure that it's not changing in a way that we don't understand, right? Or that we didn't anticipate when we approved this thing.
Yeah, so again,
There's a reason you go through land development, right? I mean, there's a process. I'm not trying to make it hard. We're trying to make it
No.
formal and no surprises, and no
Please
misunderstanding.
know that we are on board with letting you guys review.
yeah, and we want to make this as easy for you, streamlined with regard to this review process. So Matt, like Mr. Layton said, reach out to Rich, Jim,
Yeah.
reach out to Eric, and we'll get the ball rolling there.
That's
All right.
not great. We just want to understand the procedure. That's all.
No, listen, I completely understand, but I think a lot of it can be done offline as well. So
Oh, no, that's
Perfect.
fine. Absolutely.
thank you very
I
much.
appreciate your time. Thank
I
you very
appreciate
much.
it. Tell Ryan Jennings I said hello. All
Oh, I
right.
definitely
There you go.
will. Absolutely.
See, if you guys would have sent Ryan, this would have been resolved already, Thank you.
Joe.
All right, now we're going to move down to section 10, reports, 10.1, report from the Township Engineer, Mr. Johnson.
Hi, good evening. Just give a quick update on a few projects going on. The Hansell Martin Valley Forge Stormwater Project was underway last week with the work at Martin and Hansell, and next week they'll be moving towards benefit later tonight. The municipal roof, complex roof has been started with the Public Works lean-to, has been torn down for replacement as the first phase of that project. So that's an active work. As far as the paper mill house roof, with the successful grant that the township was able to obtain, we're now in a position to proceed with engagement of the contractor under the terms of that grant. Ellis Avenue sidewalk, as you may have noticed, the contractor was out to complete some of the punch list items. Other items remain. So at this point, I would just say we're evaluating with the township staff how best to proceed with close out the project and or dealing with the remaining items. And then St. Albans Circle, the contractor is out there today doing the line striping, which is the last major portion of the work out.
And that line striping also includes crosswalks.
Correct. Yes.
Perfect. Any questions for the Township Engineer?
So you would said the last time we had 2 drainage projects. Are they completed?
They're in mid. So that's the Martin Hansell Valley Forge is in mid construction right now. That is the one that's in construction now. The other ones are in design to be bid and awarded by the end.
Is that the one where the line was washing out between the 2 properties?
Yes. Yes, that is
That
the
was
one.
that George looked at, but was just too big for his people to handle.
Yes, there's the Hansell. The one you're probably talking about is Upper St. Albans, is a project that we are is in design now. And we're working towards to have a contract we could award by the end of the year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hansell was the one that the equipment we had was not designed to go as deep as what we needed to do. That's under this project.
That one, yes, on Hansell, that one was completed last week. The pipe was 15+ feet deep, and that was successfully repaired last week.
Any other questions for the township engineer? 10.2, report from the township manager. Mr. Neese, I hope you don't have much.
The only thing I have, actually, Eric already kind of mentioned to you, we did get that grant finalized for the paper mill house roof. Meaning that pretty much all of that roof is being covered between a grant from the state as well as the gift from the developer.
Perfect. Nothing else, Mr. Neese?
That's all I have.
Perfect. All right. What'd you say? Oh, Section 11, payments. 11.1, can I get a motion approving the $177,681.37 payment to state aid to the Volunteer Fire Relief Association?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the question was.
When you say state aid, is that like a grant?
So every year we get money from the state to give to the Firemen's Relief Association. And yes, it is from the state.
Thank you very much.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 11.2, can I get a motion approving the payment of $6,800 to Stewart and Associates LLC for consulting work for the Westchester Pike Median Landscape Project? It is not included on the current check register, but will be paid on a separate check run.
So moved.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Section 12, bills. I've reviewed the bills and I'll make a motion to approve the bills on check register A dated October 14, 2024, totaling $527,616.33. Motion is made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 12.2, making a motion, I've reviewed the bills and I'll make a motion to approve the bills on check register B dated October 14, 2024, totaling $804,030.84.
Second.
Motion is made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. 12.3, again, I've reviewed the bills and I'll make a motion ratifying the bills on EFT register dated October 14, 2024, totaling $706.03.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Section 13, developers release. I get a motion approving the escrow release number 6 totaling $34,051.17 to Polig Homes LLC for the Stoney Knoll development and leaving a remaining balance of $876,489.98.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? All those in
Aye.
favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Section 14, new business. 14.1, can I get a motion approving the hiring of Jennifer Guffrey for the open position in the police department at an annual salary of $50,000 contingent on passing all required background checks?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? I'll just add, welcome to Newtown Township, Jennifer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Figured nobody had board discussions. That would have been awkward then if we said no. That would have been, okay. So now we are going to, it was a good point. I should have said welcome after we voted, so thank you for that. So the next couple of motions, 14.2, 14.3, 14.4, 14.5, 14.6, all have to do with the 2024 median tree planting and the bids. It's a series of bids in response to the request for bids that we sent out. With regards to motions 14.2, 14.3, 14.4, 14.5, And 14.6, Mr. Neese, have the bids been reviewed? I'm sorry, Mr. Sikora, have the bids been
Yes, the
reviewed?
township, administration, fully
Hang
vetted,
on.
township administration fully vetted, each one of the bid packets that came in. The bid packets themselves, the request for bid has the ability of the township to waive irregularities. Certain irregularity, meaning, just problems with the bids. So the township reserves the right to waive problems, but there's certain things that can be waived, certain things that can't be waived. Some things are a bigger deal than others. So when in reviewing these bid packets, the lowest reported bidder, right, the lowest number submitted was by Parkland Landscape, but the bid packet did not have letter surety saying that it would issue a performance bond on award of the contract. That's a requirement in our bid packet. Second, lowest bidder, Garrison Landscaping, also lacked a letter from the surety. The third, All Seasons Landscaping, third lowest reported bidder, did have the surety letter. It did have another document that was missing called an affidavit of non-conclusion. Then the fourth reported lowest bidder, Delaware Environmental Construction, again, didn't have surety letter. Then the fifth, Murray's Landscaping, it did have the surety letter. So you have these series of motions here or agenda items to accept or reject each one of the bids because of the different problems. So first two, lack of a surety. Third one, All Seasons had that surety letter. Okay, so if you go take a look at each one of the agenda items before you, you have that ability to say, all right, look, we see there's a defect. We're going to reject that bid because of that defect, or we're going to award it to that bidder. We're going to waive the irregularity.
Okay. So then based off of that, I will make a motion. So for 14.2, I will make a motion to reject the lowest purported bid for the 2024 median tree planting contract 2024-11 submitted by Parkland Landscape and Hardscape LLC for failure to submit a surety bond from a surety agreeing to furnish the requested surety bond per section 17 of the bid packet.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap. Is there any board discussion? And again, this is to reject 14.2. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? A motion has been approved to reject that one. For 14.3, I will also make a motion to reject the second lowest purported bid for the 2024 median tree planting contract number 2024-11 submitted by J. Garrison Landscaping Incorporated for failing to submit a surety bond from a surety agreeing to furnish the required surety bond per section 17 of the request for the bid packet. Motion is made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? Again, this is also a motion to reject. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion has been approved to reject 14.3. With regards to 14.4, I will make a motion to accept the bid of All Seasons Landscaping Incorporated, the 2024 median tree planting contract number 2024-11 is the lowest responsible bidder submitting a complete bid packet.
So moved.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap. Sorry, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap. Is there any board discussion? Again, this one is to accept the bid. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. I will now make a motion to withdraw items 14.5 and 14.6 from the agenda. Motion has been made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Russo to withdraw motions 14.5 and 14.6 as moot. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Okay. 14.7, consider approving the advertisement for bids for the Eastern and Western Westchester Pike. Well, let me actually, before I get on that. Anything else we need to do on them? I listened well to that explanation. Thank you. 14.7, consider approving the advertisement for bids for the Eastern and Western Westchester Pike medians landscaping plantings for the design by Stewart and Associates or Stewart Associates.
So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Robert Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion?
Oh, I just have a question. Paul is here. Did Newtown in Bloom review what is going out to be out to bid?
I do not believe they have reviewed it.
We haven't seen anything, Paul Seligson, 4727 Mill Hall Lane. But we offer, we do have 2 grants, and we offer any overage from our grants back to the township to help underwrite tree planting in the median.
So this project, just so everybody knows, is really more of a ground cover, primarily in the new medians that for the work that was done this spring and fall. And the idea is, particularly a couple of them are pretty narrow, and it's to eliminate the need for mowing. So the trees will be planted, and then this ground cover will come back in between the trees to fill in, to provide kind of a no-mow area on these medians on Westchester Pike. There's about 4 on the western side, and then there's 3 on the eastern side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. Any other board comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And let me ask you this, George or Mr. Neese, when do we expect to start seeing this go in?
So this is a going out to bid. We'll have to build the bid. This is your authorizing for us to do it and advertise. We will do that. My guess is we want to get the trees in. Most likely all of these plantings will be done in the early spring. The trees will be done this fall.
Okay.
The ground plantings will be done this spring.
And is that just because of the way that the bidding is timing out?
Well, it's because of the way the bidding's timing out, and also the viability of the plants. Trees do pretty well being planted in the fall. But a lot of the type of plants that we're planting in the median would do better having the spring, where we're not putting salt into the median right on top of them right after we plant them. We want to get them established before we would potentially do that. So we'll be able to do that in the spring.
Sounds good. All right, 14.8, can I get a motion accepting the CoStar's quote from Ray Lynn Enterprises in the amount of $40,676.67 for purchase of bollard and curbing materials as specified by PennDOT for the safety improvements at the entrance exit of Newtown Meadow Preserve on Route 252. The purchase will be made upon receipt of PennDOT permit for the project.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Robert Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? Eric, I know I asked you this, but I just think it's comical that PennDOT, the reason why we're on the hook for this is because PennDOT doesn't essentially want to pay for it.
The safety improvements we're looking to make, they've been viewed as assisting our driveway as opposed to the roadway, yes.
Nice. Thank you. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 14.9, can I get a motion approving the 5-year winter services agreement with PennDOT? Note the associated resolution is listed in 15.1 below. Let's get this motion first and then we'll do the resolution. Motion is made by Supervisor Rob Slycap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion?
Aye.
Motion carries. 15.1, can I get a motion approving resolution 2024-21 PennDOT Winter Services Agreement?
So moved.
Motion made by Supervisor Robert Slycap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 14.10, can I get a motion approving the settlement agreement with PennDOT relative to receiving $2,704 for the township's 2024 mowing and maintenance of the medians on Route 3 and Route 252?
So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Robert Slycap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? I just have a question. Settlement agreement?
Yeah, it's worded a little different. I
Okay.
think we just didn't have a signed reimbursement agreement.
Got it.
And so they said, well, we can't just pay without a signed agreement. So they retroactively, they called it a settlement
Got
agreement.
it. Perfect. Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next two motions, 14.11 and 14.2, are related to a series of bids in response to requests for bids related to recycling. So Mr. Sikora, have all the bids been reviewed?
The bids were reviewed by the Township Administration. Similar to the earlier discussion, the lowest purported bid or had some defects in the bid. Things missing, right? So you have that ability to waive certain defects, but you have also certain defects that are non-waivable. This particular bid packet looks like it was on behalf of Creative Waste Solutions LLC, doing business as B&L Disposal. It was signed by Mr. Pizarro. That did not have that same bid letter that we talked about. Also didn't have a bidder's affidavit. Doesn't have the corporation name. Itself, and it's missing seal. Corporate seal is supposed to go. Next lowest bidder is this company called Whitetail Disposal. Did have a complete. There are two motions that are before you were to consider accepting or rejecting that lowest purported bidder. Next that we've discussed now, or that then going to the next lowest bidder. Seeing if you want to take that.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, so based off of that information, then for 14.11, I will make a motion to reject the lowest purported bid for the 2025-2027 collection recycling material contract number 2024, signed by Louis J.F. Pizarro, apparently on behalf of Creative Waste Solutions LLC, doing business as B&L Disposal, as the bid packet does not conform to bid specification requirements in that, among other reasons, the primary bid sheet does not include the name of any bidder in the form line. There is no corporate bidder or seal of a corporation on the signature line, while other supporting documents indicate that a corporation intended to bid. There's no bidder's affidavit and no letter of assurity regarding a performance bond, and that is my motion.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Robert Slycap. Is there any board discussion? Again, 14.1 will be to reject. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
14.11. I said 14.11. Yeah,
You said one.
sorry, 14.11 will be to reject. So again, I'll call that question one more time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries to reject 14.11. For 14.2, there's a theme here. For 14.12, I'll make a motion approving the award of the 2025-2027 contract recycling material contract number 2024-10 to Whitetail Disposal as the lowest responsible bidder, submitting a complete bid packet. Motion is made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? 14.12 is a motion to accept. Just a reminder, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Okay. 14.13, can I get a motion accepting the proposal from JMP Services to repair the guardrail and crash terminal at the Gradyville Road Bridge at a cost of $11,650? Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. 14.14, I get a motion of awarding the Hilltop Road and Radnor Drive intersection ADA ramps project to Premier Concrete Incorporated, who is the lowest responsible bidder with a bid of $30,735.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Robert Slaycap. Is there any board discussion?
This one's a straight bid, right? There's
Yeah,
no.
no issues with this one.
So Hilltop and Radnor is the area where there were crosswalks, but they were not good crosswalks. When we repaved the road, we would have ideally done ADA ramps that were over there and align the crosswalks properly. This is again a county aid project, so the vast majority of the project is going to be paid for by county aid. It is. It's 400.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other board discussion? Supervisor San Francisco, we're gonna add something?
Yeah, this crosswalk went into the middle of the intersection and did not line up with the four corners as Supervisor Russo said. It was a straight shot across Hilltop and Radnor where it blocked all the intersections and the safety of the kids and adults crossing there was a mess.
Here's St. Andy's, right?
Right at St. Anne's
Oh, yeah.
Church.
So there, you've got a lot of
That street
pedestrian. Yeah.
it comes up.
All right. All those in favor signify
Aye.
by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. 14.15, can I get a motion approving bond number K4158117, release number 1 to Equus Development LP for the construction of the Winding Way Soil Nail Impact Area of the Ellis Preserve Town Center Phase 2, totaling $119,186.75, as approved by the Township Engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Robert Slaycap. Is there any board discussion?
I just have a question. What is that?
So this was a better part of 2 years ago when they're getting ready to excavate for the parking garage at the office building, which went down. They had to do soil nails into the ground to stabilize the soil before they put the concrete wall in place. So you had them sign an agreement and then post this bond to ensure, just in case anything went wrong or happened that would have impacted Winding Way. The garage is now complete and open, and there was no
So the nails were into like,
soil to hold the soil wall up between excavation and pouring the concrete wall for the garage.
Any other questions from the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. 14.16, consider approving the township website and social media advertisement for all open boards, commissions, and committee expiring positions. The one thing I'll add is that the deadline for everyone to get their applications in will be December 6th, 2024.
so moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Robert Slaycap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We already did section 15. We'll now move down to section 16, ordinances, 16.1. I get a motion approving ordinance 2024-09, amendment to Township Code, Chapter 143, Stormwater Management.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Robert Slaycap. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese, do you, yeah, right. Mr. Sikora, do you, need to add anything to this at all or no? I know we discussed it back September 9th, I think it was when we voted to advertise, and we did go through the ordinance at that
September
time.
9th, September.
Why don't you just remind everyone what it is?
In early September, you went through, higher ordinance. Made there was a couple spots for the board to exercise some discretion on, some specific numbers, setbacks and stuff. The board, made those decisions, approved the ordinance for advertising. The ordinance was in fact advertised in the Delaware County Daily Times on September 30th, 2024, saying that it would be considered today. Number of, somebody who had particular interest in this ordinance, Environmental Advisory Council, all that the comprehensive plan had called for a 50-foot riparian buffer. The Environmental Advisory Council was very interested in updating our ordinance to match what was set forth in the comprehensive plan. You did, in fact, that's what you advertised, that's what's in here. The Environmental Advisory Council also reviewed the ordinance after it was approved and made a number of, I'd call them comments more than requests. Most of it was either comments, questions, or suggestions. One of the questions was, why don't we kind of move this all into the land development ordinance instead of having a standalone stormwater management ordinance? But this is number one, this is recommended way to do it by the Department of Environmental Protection, whose guidance we're following. Number two, that would actually decrease our breadth of what this applies to, because then if it's part of land development, it would only apply when land development's an issue. This applies to everybody, no matter whether it's a land development issue or just a permit issue, or otherwise. We all have to comply with the land stormwater management ordinance. A couple other questions they had. Why don't we increase the amount of fee or into the future doing inspections of stormwater management facilities? Right now, I think it goes out 10 years. I think the ordinance for 15 years. But making that go out further, that impacts everybody, including the smallest project in our township where a resident wants to put a sidewalk in front of their house. And now they have to double the amount of fee for future inspections. The protections provided by this ordinance are indefinite, so if the township sees a problem, we can always go back. It's just that we're not going to have a routine inspection that person has to pay for beyond that. Well, 10 years. And one other comment that they had was, well, why don't have it specify that wetland delineations, when they're submitted with land development plans, be no older than 5 years. And my township engineer about that, and what was the answer?
Yeah, so I believe that their position that 5 years is a good number. The ordinance does not explicitly have a provision of what of how old a report can be. However, as the ordinance does defer to the engineer, in determining acceptance with the stormwater ordinance and the township ordinances, and under that, we would consider to be the 5 years to be an acceptable window for a wetlands delineation. That's not to say in the future we could not codify that into the code, but as far as a matter of practice, that is how we are regulating the ordinance.
I know you also traditionally, for you, is it fair to say that Pennoni doesn't like them more than a year old?
I mean, if you have a site, I mean, yes, 1 year would be great. And usually for most developments that are going to come in, if you're developing the plan or if you're developing the permits for that, then you're going to have a newer newer delineation, particularly if you're applying for state permits, various floodplain permits. You also are going to have to meet the standard to be the state or FEMA in that case, who's going to want a newer.
And then with regards to, so I think I heard you say that you would not have any opposition to us codifying that, but I think that it's also fair to say that you would not hold up the ordinance for the adoption for that. You would, it's safe to say that you're fine with your Pennoni policy essentially is a year, ideally, right? A year to 5 years. But one day you might not be here, Eric.
Mhm.
You know, I might not be here. And so it would be probably something that we should discuss about codifying that to. limit-
I would say yes, you definitely, something you can consider in the future if you want to codify that, but you can take solace right now in the ordinance. Places, gives discretion to the professionals in the review and requirement of having a newer study.
Got it.
And another issue that they raised was the ability for existing lots for the township to reduce the amount of the riparian buffer. You know, some lots just simply don't have 100 feet on either side of the wetlands. So it's either a completely unusable lot, which has issues of condemned, if a lot cannot be used at all, or can that be reduced? So the understanding that they're concerned about just disregarding riparian buffers, I don't think they're position that we shouldn't allow for a reduction for existing lots. I just don't think that's workable. And that's, you know, what we've done is completely consistent with the recommended ordinance by the deed.
Understood.
I think that's pretty much everything. I think that's everything that they have recommended, so everything else you've already discussed.
Perfect. Any other board discussion from the board or any other board discussion? The only thing I'll note is that I guess the comment letter they provided to us, I did address that with them and they seem to be satisfied with what we discussed. So that's fine. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We'll now move down to section 17, board comment. The only thing that I have with regards to board comment is a reminder about Saturday at the Goshen Trail, starting at 9 o'clock, is the tree planting that will take place. It is also Garrett Williamson's Harvest Festival, which begins at 10 a.m. And I believe that is all that I have for board comment. Any other board members? Public comment. Anyone from the public who have anything they wish to provide, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.